Hello, welcome to Cerulean Arts Gallery. Today we're speaking with Sarah Roche in conjunction with the exhibition Bread and Roses, curated by Sarah and featuring the work of Zoe Cohen, Michael Frechette, Kellianne McCarthy, Sarah herself, and Rebecca Saylor Sack. The exhibition is on view now through October 26th. Hello, Sarah.
Good morning, Mike. Nice to see you.
Morning, nice to see you. So we've known each other a long time. Back to
That's true.
school days. Yep.
hmm
So, and then you were one of our very first shows here at the gallery.
That's right. It was the show, the collection that I had at your show. It might have been the third show you had at the gallery when you
I think
opened.
so. 20
Yeah,
was it 2000, was it the fall of 2006, I believe, right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Wow.
hmm
So, we've had a long history together. And
Yes.
so we invited you to curate a show for us. And
hmm
let me share my screen and bring the show up.
Yeah. Well, thanks for
So
that
here,
opportunity. It's interesting to be curating a show as a mostly a painter myself or an artist to see it from that side. And I was like really pleased to have the chance to ask some artists that I've known for a long time and really admired their work to participate in the show, and everyone said yes. So it was delightful. Um, the piece that you're focusing on is one that I made recently. It's called Peach and Roses, and it's a still life. Um, that I painted in memory of my aunt who recently passed away. Some of her belongings in the setup. The
and so for the
roses, the
show, you
flowers.
didn't,
Go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. So the show, you didn't necessarily know all the artists personally, right?
I knew everybody professionally a little bit, but I didn't know them all well. That I don't know them well that well personally. No, this is the work of Zoe Cohen, and it's a watercolor painting, a small watercolor painting called Creek Moons. I've known Zoe for some time uh, as a colleague and a labor organizer, but she's also a really talented painter.
Well, and
This
that's
is the paint.
part of the
Yeah,
concept of the show, right?
that's right. Um, Bread and Roses. Yeah, this I'll explain a little more. This is a painting by Rebecca Saylor Sack entitled "Sunlight Splits the Rift." Um, and here we have a painting by Kellianne McCarthy called Holy Radiation Budget, which I thought was fascinating. She told me it had something to do with what she was reading, and she was reading a book about Chernobyl, which explains the radiation budget piece of it.
Mhm.
um, and this painting is by Michael Frechette and is entitled "Crashing into Things on Purpose." Um, I've been looking at Michael's work since the 90s, I believe, when he used to show in Old City. And I only recently have gotten to know him a little bit more. Um, he's a painter that I admire a lot. Yeah, the show is called Bread and Roses, and it has to do a little bit with the labor of the artist, these artists in particular, but really all artists' labor. Um, all right, these two paintings are or they're watercolor paintings mounted on these sculptural wooden carved frames. that are really unique. And they're by Zoe Cohen as well. Um, they have to do with a trip she took to Mexico. Her work is a lot about relating to different places that she, you know, travels to, or, you know, I really, really love the texture of those. Um, Another painting by Rebecca Saylor Sack. Rebecca's got an amazing garden that she's been cultivating, and her recent work is like real close-ups of the foliage in the garden and, you know, sort of the process that's happening in the garden of growth and the cycle of that growth and decay. Um, okay. Um, this one is another painting by Kellianne McCarthy called Spacecraft with Stripes. I really like her mixed media.
Yeah,
Um,
she's using a lot of different materials in her stuff.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And this is you.
Uh, yes, this is a drawing that I made called Lemon, and it's a very fast gestural study of a lemon that I made to try to explain different techniques and how they work to students a few years back. The
Yeah.
lemon is also kind of a commentary on being an adjunct professor,
Yeah, you spent a
which
lot of
I
years
have been
teaching,
for much of my life, an adjunct professor of art.
which sort
It's
of
just
speaks to the concept of the show that artists have to, do other jobs
many
to.
things, yes, to have a space to make the work. This is an absolutely beautiful landscape pasture at Rosemont Farm with the moon. That's my edition. It's called Pasture with Rosemont Farm at Rosemont Farm by Michael Frechette. And I was also trying to think about like the season that we're in when I was selecting work for the show, like being October, the end of the season for a lot of things that are growing. And this is called Hellebores by Rebecca Saylor Sack. And Kellianne McCarthy, a small piece with a lot of layers on top of a collage element called Holy Fireball. Um, okay, so this painting is one that I made in the spring and actually kind of was my touchstone for the show because I often do paint still lifes. This was just a still life that I made that included my bullhorn. So it's called Bullhorn Among the Lovelies, and all these beautiful things that I love, like my own lilacs and amaryllis flowers, a beautiful sand dollar, and a beautiful piece of fabric that came from Guatemala is what everything's resting on, and a clementine. So
And the
my
bullhorn is
experience,
significant, right?
yeah, the bullhorn um, is something that I have. I used it. I'm in several labor unions, and I was on strike a couple 3 years ago with one of them, and so I was using this particular bullhorn as a strike captain. Um, and so it's now something that I have. I've actually currently been using it at certain rallies that I've attended as well. So it's still something that I'm using. And I guess if I think about my own life when I was young, I never would have imagined that I would be using a bullhorn in public, but
Yeah,
now
right.
I do. So the painting, I think, is both loud in its color, but also hopefully harmonious to some degree. Um, and I painted it pretty quickly. Ah, yes. The other side of the gallery, we're moving around to the other side, and this is a painting on a collage that Kellianne McCarthy made, a digital collage, and it's called To the Navy Yard with Love. Anyone that's been to the Philadelphia Navy Yard might recognize sort of the environment that this imaginative piece, creates, evokes. And this painting is by Rebecca Saylor Sack, and it was painted last fall, and it's untitled, although she told me it is her election painting, and so it has a bit of a lot of emotional expression, I think, in all of her work, but in this piece in particular. And when I was speaking to artists in their studios, that was such a delight to go do studio visits. Kellianne McCarthy showed me this painting, which is called Some Bizarre Shit. And but it really is a bit trippy, and she's good with that interpretation, or psychedelic. But she told me it's one of her favorite paintings she's ever made. So I was glad we got to include it in the exhibition. It has these amazing, I think, crepuscular rays coming out, and there's a sense of a landscape. And I mean, there is a landscape theme that is somewhat a sub theme in the show. This is another beautiful landscape by Michael Frechette called Boyhood Memory. And it is a memory of apple trees in bloom, according to the artist. He also uses materials in a very interesting way. You can see the surface of the painting. It's a little hard to see in a photo, but there's incredible texture of the paint. And I think it's very evocative of a childhood memory. It's a real mood. Um, and I think I am interested in the mood of work as more than necessarily the image. Like this piece is Mysteriously Abstract by Kellianne McCarthy. Um, but the surface of the paint and the sort of shimmering sense of space that she's getting. This one is called This Must Be the Place. That's the name of that one. This is a piece that I made. It's called Dark Hydrangea, and it's a metallic watercolor on black. It was a quick study that I made, but it is my own flower, my hydrangea from the garden, and a pot that I made recently in my ceramic studio. So it's sort of personal, but also I made it the day of what I think was a negative day in our country, the passing of the Republican big, quote, beautiful bill, which I think is ugly. But onto some very beautiful works by Zoe Cohen. These are paintings she made on a residency this year recently in the Appalachian Hills. That one is called Reflection at Tinicum Marsh. Um, and anyone that's been to Tinicum might get the feeling from this as well. I certainly did. This one is called Snail Eyes Under Rose Bay at Betty Creek. And those are snail eyes in
So
a
these are
metaphorical
watercolors.
way. These are watercolors. They're lovely, lovely watercolors that she mounts on to a panel
Oh,
later.
yeah, which is a little unusual for a watercolor.
Yeah, it is. It is. Makes them a little more solid object like, which I think
Hmm.
seems like something she likes to do. This one's called Boreal Beard Lichen and Little Brown Jugs with Hanging Mist under Owen's Mountain. Um, and there's another one that has sort of a waterfall or stream effect Creek Moons. And the four of them, when I saw them in her studio, they were grouped like this, and I really love them that way. So we decided to keep them close together in the show, although they are separate pieces. And then the last piece in the show is by Rebecca Saylor Sack, and it's called Rainfell. And it's like I love this sense of like a thicket or a very dense stand of flowers and foliage. Her texture is really beautiful. And I think she's really cultivating her garden for its own sake and also using it like as the source of these new works. So everyone, basically works very hard and takes their studio practice very seriously. And also everyone is working uh, with other professions in their life, which are also meaningful parts of their life. So that's
So,
I know
Sarah,
that's actually not just it's not just these people. It's so many artists are doing this. It's like I could have if I had a larger space, I could have picked 100 more people, but the I was just so happy the way we got to get together in person and get to know each other and a little bit better and create a little bit more of a community, a shared community through the show. And I hope other artists and art lovers can come and enjoy it while it's up.
so Sarah, when you were putting together the show, I mean, did you start with a concept? Did you start with the artists? And did you go from one to the other to the other? Like, how did you form it?
I started with well, I mean, I guess I started from my own perspective, of course, because I you asked me to include myself in the show, so I started with myself, but then immediately started thinking about these artists who I actually have been following their work for years, right? Or whether it's in person or virtually through social media as well. Uh, and I had the title of the show in mind first, The Bread and Roses, and I could read a little bit of a quote. Um,
Yes.
so, Bread and Roses is a labor phrase. It's also a poem and a song, which I will not sing. But it started out in like about 1911, 1912. There was a suffragist and labor activist. Her name was Helen Todd, and she was speaking, and she said the phrase that workers deserve quote bread for all and roses too. And there was a bread and roses strike in 1912 in which textile workers who were mostly women walked off the job and they went on strike. They were trying to get human dignity of being able to afford both bread and also roses, meaning some of the finer things in life that you should be able to afford if you're a working person. Um, so that was a concept that I had mainly because my own personal experience, but also I see that experience in a variety of ways in so many artists, and including all these people that are in this show. So that was how the concept came to be. It also, I realized as I was looking at things, I also wanted to make it, mostly a painting show, although, of course, painting is a pretty broad topic. And these pieces we're looking at right here have also a bit of a sculptural quality as well. And I am a painter, but I love all media, but I just wanted to keep the focus a little bit more on painting for this particular show. Um, I think another theme is nature, in being able to contemplate nature, and meditate on nature within someone's art practice is something else that I personally do, and that I like react to when I see other people doing that. The I will give a credit to a book that I was reading. I read several books on labor in this past year. One is called Fight Like Hell, and it's by the local labor writer Kim Kelly. And she wrote this book that highlighted the contributions to the labor movement of sort of people that may not have gotten top billing at the time, such as women, people of color, indigenous people, disabled people. It's an excellent book, but that was where I first heard about the Bread and Roses strike. And then another book that I read, which also really has influenced my thinking lately, is it's called The Hammer by Hamilton Nolan. And The Hammer is also about labor, but a little bit less historical and more about contemporary struggles within the current labor movement as it is. And and so I have always been a union member because as I've been an educator most of my career, and unions have helped my situation. But as I've gotten older, I feel that um, unions may be one of our best tools going forward to like deal with the inequality of our society. And so I've personally leaned into labor organizing and labor action myself. And I think that it's just one tool that will help us, hopefully improve our life and improve our country and society.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's a really beautiful show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
So the show is up through October 26th. We hope people come down to see it. And everything's also available on the website, ceruleanarts.com. So thanks again for being here, Sarah, and have a great rest of the day.
Thanks, you too, Mike. Bye bye.